Hello, and thank you so much for coming out. It means a lot because there are a lot of other great things you could be seeing, so thank you again very much. I have a very, very special guest here, Bill Crager, co-founder, CEO of Envestnet. If I may ask, how many of you are advisors? A show of hands, please. Okay, so roughly half. For you, I'm sure know all about Envestnet, but for those who don't, it'd be great, Bill, if you could just step back a little and tell us briefly about your company, how it helps advisors and clients, et cetera.
Thank you, Greg. It's great to be here. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Future Proof. Pretty awesome. Glad the rain has gone away. You know, it never rains in Southern California. I'd sing it, but you don't want me to do that. Yeah, believe it or not, Greg, 24 years ago, we began to utilize technology to try to level the playing field for independent financial advisors to compete and to offer objective advice to their clients. And at that time, really all the technical product capability scale tilted towards the wirehouses. And they had built these technologies that enabled their advisors to deliver advice more in a box. And so our vision back then was, what if we built a similar environment for the independent financial advisor? Now, the challenge with all that was that at that time, we were operating on a 28K dial-up. And to think 24 years later, today the company will serve, from a fiduciary standpoint, roughly $5.5 trillion today, across more than a third of the U.S. financial advisor base is really hard to believe. It's extraordinary, that journey. Across that journey, just a note very quickly, because some dear friends of mine perished on 9/11. It is 9/11. It's the 22nd year anniversary. And I think about the history, Greg, from late 1999 all the way up until September 11, 2023, and the extraordinary things that occurred. Some of them are terrible and tragic. Some of them are extraordinary, and so have unleashed and unhooked the ability to really serve people's money in a completely different way. So those are all the ebbs and flows of the journey over 24 years.
Okay. Advisors surely are aware of your products and understand how it wells, but particularly for those who may not, I would like you to provide a more tangible and palpable sense and description of what it does, and also conceptually the idea of silos and how people's finances are kind of just in distinct places on apps, but it's not unified, and how Envestnet's trying to really holistically pull this all together.
Yeah, I mean, we started with a more limited idea, the company, to help enable, again, an asset allocation strategy and to deliver an asset management capability to more people. And that's where the name, the TAMP, came from. The Turnkey Asset Management Platform really originates quite a bit with Envestnet. And it was to combine the technology with an asset allocation. But advice is so much more than that. And there are a lot of administrative functions, there are a lot of regulatory functions, there's a lot of execution that goes with it, and then there's this art of advice and how advice is offered. And advice has evolved so much over the period that we've been doing it, from the idea of access to an institutional asset manager, to a more diversified portfolio, to something that was planning-based. I would say that's the state we're in today, very planning-based advice, going all the way into this very holistic advice model that I believe is the future. So I ask all of you, you're all in this industry, but take a step back and make it personal for a second. How many of you, how many different parts of your financial life do you have? You have these things that you do every day. You spend money, you earn money, you've got bills that come in, you've got income that comes in the door. But then you want to get someplace into the future, and those parts don't talk to each other. So really, the purpose of Envestnet is to help people deliver on the promise of a more connected, more intelligent, more cohesive, and more coherent financial life. and we're making a lot of progress there. That's through our planning capability, our planning technology that's stitched into the execution engine that serves, again, $5.5 trillion today. And now, more and more, Greg, being powered by the intelligence of data, AI.
Yeah, I was thinking kind of high level about your business and how there's some parallels almost to it acting almost as a doctor of sorts. There's an analogy because if you go to a doctor, they might give you one drug to treat, let's say, high blood pressure, but there might be side effects that might affect something else. So they look at your body holistically, or at least they should in principle. And financially, it's really often siloed. You'll get investment advice here and there. So I think there is a interdependence of sorts, certainly a real cause and effect, if you will. And I find that it's quite obvious that it's a good idea, important yet. So I think for many people, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's not something people actively think they need.
Right.
And I'm curious, once people experience this, is there something akin to a eureka moment where they say, "Oh boy, I wish I did this earlier," or is there a different response that you tend to encounter?
Yeah, so it's been an incredible journey in evolution of what we offer to advisors, to offer to their clients. We believe 100% of our business is directed towards that intermediary, because the art of advice is both science, but it's also emotional. Like people, when you think about your life, the things that matter, well, your family matters, your health matters, and money matters. And money shouldn't be it shouldn't be the end, it should be the means. And so how do we enable money to be more helpful, help advisors make money more helpful to more and more people? So we've done a lot of work with data and with the fiduciary parts of our platform and the planning parts of our platform. And so we can connect people's daily spending activity and their earnings activity to their financial plan, and you can begin to project you're on path or you're not on path. And you can nudge this way and that way to help that advisor provide the appropriate advice at the appropriate time. It's very powerful. It's extraordinarily powerful. So there's an advisor, I don't know if they're here or not, sat and saw one of the environments we built, which is an end client portal that's fully branded for the financial advisor. They sat back and they just said, this is not software as a service, this is relationships as a service. How powerful it is to see your financial life connected in one place, it's rare. And I spend a lot of time with industry people and less with the end consumer. But when industry people see these types of capabilities, they're like, I need that. Well, if you all need that, then your clients certainly do. And I believe we're just getting started in how integrated financial advice and how powerful that holistic proposition is, and how it can really create cohesion for families and individuals. And
as a backdrop, you probably have heard this, but it's still worth underscoring that there is an expected $84 trillion wealth transfer over the next 2 decades or so. It's according to Cerulli. So there is going to be a lot of money as well transferring. So there's a big opportunity to tap there.
Absolutely. And then how's the money going to transition? The money's going to transition into a more holistic, relevant digital environment that's served by a human financial advisor. The human financial advisor is essential. That emotional moment, when that advisor adds the most value, is when there's a stress or an opportunity in a person's financial life. What is that? Well, maybe you get married, maybe you get divorced, maybe you sell a business, maybe somebody dies, maybe you want to get a kid to college. All these things are really emotional. And so that takes that human connection that is so essential, but powering that through digital technology is imperative for the consumer today. We all live on our phones. We all live very digital lives. Well, that has to be the same with money. And the financial advisor really can sit in the middle, be the center of that relationship.
So I want to widen the lens a little and talk about the future of wealth tech, wealth management, et cetera, and how advisors can ensure that they're not left behind. Change is a constant, but I think technology is turbocharging the rate of change. And for obvious reasons, no one wants to be left behind. Can you tell me a little what you think the state of play will be in a few years? What services that don't exist now or perhaps are just budding, and maybe aside from AI, we could pivot to that as well, but do you think may appear in a few short years that we, again, are off the radar right now?
So I think that change is, just the constant, and it just is, and people are afraid of it, right? You want to keep things the way they are because I've kind of got it nailed down, and I'm building a good business, and I've got this thing kind of turnkeyed. That is really nice to think about, but impractical from an execution standpoint. You have to evolve. You have to continue to grow, adapt, adopt, drive, innovate, step back and operationalize it. And to me, I have so many conversations with financial advisors, and there's a fear factor. Well, the robos are going to replace us, or AI is going to take my seat. That's not the case. The case is, as you leverage these capabilities, they scale you. They scale firms to provide more services in a more personalized way to more and more people, and to do that in a very cost-effective, profitable way to grow the top line and the bottom line of an advisor's business. That is adapting. That is innovating. That is changing. So you have to not be part of the fear group. You have to be part of the opportunity group. And that, to me, is where the firms, when I recognize and I have conversations with firms that are moving in the direction of more digital, more data, more planning-based, more holistic allocated portfolios that go beyond the typical 60-40, well, those are the firms that are very progressive. They're going to recruit more advisors, and they're going to be able to transfer that wealth far more effectively.
For firms that are trying to adapt and change, but maybe are not doing it sufficiently or culturally, do you have any recommendations on ways they can jumpstart that process or ensure buy-in across the practice?
Well, the easy thing to do is to not change. It just is easy. And what I've recognized, I've been at it for 24 years. I was a kid back then, only kidding. But we're, 24 years of building a business. What you realize is that there are these cycles. And the cycles are really interesting, and in retrospect, they're so informing to me in the way I think about the industry, but I also think about the business that I lead. You have these spikes of innovation and a sprint of innovation, and that's a very individual. That's a small group of individuals who are driving that, and they're pushing it. So inside your shop, you have that person that's raising your hand, maybe it's yourself. I'm going to drive forward. I'm going to innovate. That's individual. Then you need to operationalize that, and that's the collective. That's the organization. And you've got to cycle through those things. You cannot be one or the other. The biggest mistake that I've identified in this industry is firms that lean towards one but can't get to the other. And then once you get to the other, you got to be ready to go back to innovate and to break it all apart again. And that is so, the Achilles heel of companies as they're growing is to get stuck in one of those areas, be too innovative, constantly trying to kind of drive to the frontier and keep on doing it without operationalizing it and scaling it, because scale matters, or the one that just, hey, we're good, we're not going to change, this business is humming along, I'm making a lot of money. Well, for now you are, but not for long term. So for me, the 24-year education that I've kind of experienced firsthand is that cycle, and leaning in and investing and innovating, and then really thinking about how do you operationalize, how do you scale it, how do you make the service quality better than anyone else's.
Are there any lessons learned through that cycle? Because you not only did you go through different market cycles over 24 years, but your firm went through some historic moments with 9/11, the great financial crisis, and most recently COVID. So you had change thrown at you whether you wanted it or not, and it kind of forced you to adapt. Are there any other just broad takeaways, be it, I don't know, related to management interpersonally or otherwise, that might anyone here could glean some wisdom from?
Yeah, and I would add to all of those things, historic period of time. I also, the company suffered a horrible tragedy on October 3rd, 2019, when my partner, Judd Bergman, was killed in a car accident. And resilience, like the good times, bad times, they're going to come, and there's going to be stuff, I was going to use a different word, thrown at you that you cannot expect. You do not anticipate. Man, times feel really bad, feel really challenged. And it's that resilience. And the resilience comes from a belief and a passion to drive and to continue to push something that you know is possible. And what's possible is to help people live a more intelligent, connected, coherent financial life. If you do that for people, you're changing the quality of how they live. And then it becomes a means and not an end. How many people do you know that the end is, oh, what I'm making, money, 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 right? We used Mr. Krabs as a spokesperson last year, which, but that was on purpose, because people have this focus on money as an end, and the means is so important. Well, you can enable that means. And to me, that wakes me up every day. It's not for me at this point, a financial motivation. It's what is possible to help advisors deliver something more holistic.
I'd like to pivot a little bit to discuss the realm of investing, and more specifically, AUM flows.
Yep.
So typically, they correlate with market performance. And yet, this year, you have pronounced strength in the NASDAQ, which is up over 30%. The S&P's up 15, 16. Russell 2000 is up 6, mid-cap 7%. And the Dow, this is not all market cap based, the Dow is only up 5%. Mm-hmm. So what explains this is narrow leadership amongst a lot of tech giants who are thriving this year, largely because of optimism about AI. What's tricky for advisors is a lot of them want diversification and they don't want an over-concentration. So this is itself posing a bit of a headwind. And then, like a Ginsu knife commercial, there's more. You have cash yielding 5%. You got cash equivalents, CDs, treasuries, and fixed incomes looking as attractive as it has in a great many years. So tell me about this and what a catalyst might be from out of this current situation, which is affecting all advisors are dealing with this kind of peculiar set of circumstances.
It's really an anomaly. It's a strange period of time, quite honestly. And so again, it's one of these challenges you don't know, and you're like, a little bit of a head scratcher when you see the markets. The headlines are really great. You just gave the return numbers for NASDAQ, but it's a very narrow band. And you all, financial advisors, financial service firms, are allocators, you're diversifiers, you're risk-minded, and you're trying to create return. Well, in that environment, that concentrated environment, your alternative asset class is cash. So until that market broadens out, you're going to see a lot of money on the sidelines. Preparing for that transition, that catalyst, is something that you should be thinking about. You should be preparing your clients for that moment when the market begins to broaden out and you're allocating across a broader set of asset classes. And you can affect that in lots of ways today, whether ETS funds, direct index portfolios, insurance product, alternative asset classes, et cetera, et cetera. But preparing for that and preparing your clients for that is really important, I believe. The industry is sitting there waiting for this catalyst. The largest asset managers are net flow neutral. And all of you that work for asset management firms here understand this dynamic is kind of strange, but it'll turn and the catalyst will come, and there's going to be a very assertive or aggressive kind of push into the market. and that will be good for the asset AUM business, and it'll be good for asset management business.
And do you think a change in Fed policy might be the catalyst, and that a lot of that money on the sidelines and cash or cash equivalents might now go back into equities and not the current tech leaders, et cetera?
Yeah, you just need an indication that a little more clarity. So is inflation there? Is it not? Is the economy going to go into a recession? Is it not? There's a lot of, I don't know. And so that uncertainty, and then where it's concentrated, again, is very tech-oriented, very data-oriented boom, and a lot of assets have flooded in there. I know advisors who have concentrated their portfolio, and those folks are up 30% this year, which is extraordinary, but that's very atypical.
Let's go back to career and working in wealth management, wealth tech. We've talked a little bit about what advisors need to do in order to remain competitive. But tell me about the opportunities available for young people in particular, or people with no experience, they may be older, but what should they know about the industry? What are the opportunities? What are the skill sets that they will need to excel? I think it's important because I think this is a tremendous industry, and I think there's so much opportunity, and it's wonderful that Future Proof is calling so much attention to it, because I think especially for a lot of young people, it's either it could be out of sight, out of mind, but it's also, to the extent they think about it, they think it's the province of older white guys in suits or whatever. And there's some truth to that now, but the world is changing quickly, and there's such an abundance of opportunity, and I think it's really important that people be made aware of that. So it'd be terrific if you could discuss that a little.
It's a great industry. It's an amazing industry, and something that is accessible as a profession for so many people. The great financial crisis created a break and really divided the reputation of our industry as being stockbroker, chalk stripe suit, individuals who made a lot of money at the expense of the consumer. I think we're repairing that, and it's a particular point of passion for me. We have something that we call the Envestnet Institute on campus. And what we'll do is on college campuses across America, we provide learning, education for individuals, kids who want to understand what the jobs are in the financial services industry. How do you get that job? What does it entail? What types of courses should you take? What type of questions should you ask when you're at an interview? How do you prepare your resume, et cetera, to really draw young people into the industry. And I am incredibly proud that over nearly 60% of the individuals who have been through that institute are people of diversity, gender, and also from all sorts of ethnic backgrounds and cultural backgrounds. So we've concentrated in schools that have a highly diverse student body. And what you're seeing from there are people who get excited about the industry, and we can change the face of the industry to begin to render and reflect who America is and serve more and more people with the services that help people live a better financial life. That is possible, and it's possible because of technology, data, and education to provide more services to more people. It is an imperative for our industry. And what we've done in the past, honestly, Greg, is we've siloed this thing. We've had banks, we've had brokerages, we've had asset management firms, we've had all these things that have lived in silos. As you connect those parts, you can be much more holistic, and it can be scaled. It can be for a young person who's got $1,000, or it can be for that $100 million family, and be able to deliver services that help that human being.
And I want to add, in terms of young people considering this as a career, there's a widespread misconception that you kind of need to be a quant or a math whiz or a total numbers cruncher. That's not necessary to be in the ecosystem. There are a million different skills and hats you can wear, and there are many, many jobs, that people are simply unaware of. So I think young people should look into this and not be deterred by a surface, shallow characterization of what they might think the industry is about.
Yeah, and Future Proof's doing a great job of really kind of electrifying and giving energy to the profession and to the industry. So hats off to the effort here. It's amazing.
Yeah. Looking at the clock, we only have about 3 minutes or so. I don't know if we have any questions coming through or if the monitors are on yet. But I did wanted to bring up a fun fact here. Bill and his family run a brewery and restaurant in Saratoga Springs, New York. And it gets on Google, by the way, 201 reviews with a 4.7 average rating, so it can't be bad. Tell us a little about that. And it's in an old newspaper building, I believe, right?
It is. And I don't own the brewery. My kids do. And the idea was that people don't talk to each other anymore. They're standing there on their phone. So how do you sit and spend time talking across the table with somebody? Either you have a cup of coffee or you have a beer. And so built that business, and it opened 4 weeks before the government shut down all businesses for COVID. So that was a particularly tough period, and we didn't have the canning line put together at that point. And the canning company was in Canada. They couldn't cross the border. So the brewer guy, who is probably always stoned, he Zoomed with the guy in Canada and put the whole thing together. So then we had cans of beer. So that was a breakthrough. For those of you who follow Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy was in a couple of weeks ago, and it's Detroit-style pizza and beer, and we got a pretty good rating. So that was a positive for that business. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what was the impetus? What was the eureka moment and made you actually do it? I mean, a lot of people might talk about it or think about it, but you went through with it.
It was, again, my kids wanted to build a family business, and they'd watch their dad. My youngest was born February of 2000, so that's a month and a half after we started the company, and she's 23 now. She's in graduate school. Again, timestamp on my life. But they'd watch me be an entrepreneur, build something, and this idea that you could actually manufacture something. Beer. It's
a very good thing, I'll add.
And serve it to people and create something that people enjoy was a motivation for them. So I had never done it before, and I don't know if I'd suggest it to anybody.
Excellent. Well, we're in our remaining seconds. I don't want to have us overstay our welcome. So thank you all very, very much for coming out. We genuinely appreciate it. Thank you.